Todd and Julie Chrisley became a small screen success with their hit reality show, Chrisley Knows Best. For 10 seasons, viewers tuned in to watch the life of a wealthy family until the husband and wife duo at the head of the family were sentenced for federal crimes. And joining us in studio for the Legal Lowdown this week is criminal defense attorney Grant Varner. Of course, thanks so much for stopping in.
Anytime.
Yeah, this is a pretty big story today because of a recent announcement. But before we get to that, what were Todd and Julie Chrisley found guilty of?
So, in the most simple terms, bank fraud and tax evasion. The allegation being that they manipulated banks into loaning them money, they didn't repay a bunch of it, and they grossly underreported or manipulated their tax returns so that they would avoid paying tax.
Obviously, the two of them often showed off their wealth in a reality show, and a lot of people had some thoughts when all of these charges came out. But in November of 2022, Todd was originally sentenced to 12 years, Julie to 7 years for those charges of bank fraud and tax evasion. Did the length of those sentences, did that surprise you, or did it seem about right?
So in the federal system, we have guidelines, right? And the judge takes into account a certain number of factors, and you get a scoring or a point system. So 12 years and 7 years was nothing shocking. As a matter of fact, she received a lesser sentence. We call it a downward departure. And so the judge took into account a number of things, tallied the points, and said you should get X number of years, but we're going to depart from the guidelines, and gave her a 7-year sentence instead. But nothing eyebrow-raising about any of those sentences. And as a matter of fact, traditionally, when you have a celebrity that has avoided taxes, the courts tend to make examples out of these people.
Right.
And in this instance, Todd, I think, got a pretty standard sentence. She got a reduced sentence, perhaps because she had a lesser role, but you know, we don't know for sure.
Well, their family has certainly been outspoken about their innocence, you know, wanting them to be released. I know last fall they had some hope with Julie's 7-year sentence with an appeal, but ultimately that did not go through. What were the kind of attorney's arguments about that appeal? Why do they think that her sentence should be overturned?
Well, so the appeal did go through in essence. The appellate court found that the judge made a legal error in calculating her sentence, right? And it remanded it back to the lower court, in other words, the original court, for resentencing. And I think it was Judge Ross, I believe, was the judge that imposed the original sentence, sat down with everybody in court and said, you know, I've thought about it. The defense side, I think it was Attorney Alex Little, if I remember correctly, was arguing, hey, she wasn't a major player in this. She should only do 5 years or less, give her credit for the time she's been in. And the prosecution was arguing, no, we've asked for more time, the entirety of this case. And the judge said, look, it was a downward departure from the guidelines to begin with.
Right.
I have reconsidered the factors set forth by the appellate court. We have corrected the legal error. I'm reimposing the 7 years, and it stood. So all that work, all that time, all that money, right back where you started at 7 years.
Well, it now kind of seems like none of that matters, because yesterday it was announced that President Trump is issuing a full pardon to the two reality stars. What was the president's kind of reasoning for doing this?
I don't know that we'll ever know unless President Trump makes a statement about his reasoning. But I will tell you, a pardon, at least when people call me and they say, can you help me get a pardon, my canned speech to these people is, look, a pardon is a political animal. And I have no political hopes or aspirations, so I am in no position to help you obtain a pardon. Pardons are traditionally granted by, so on a state level, the governor can issue a pardon. On the federal level, by the president. And normally you see pardons issued when there's been an extreme miscarriage of justice, or someone has really turned their life around and is truly deserving of a second chance. And what you'll normally see is the last day or two in office, a governor will issue a flurry of pardons, or a president will do the same thing. These are federal charges, so only the president can issue a federal pardon. But it's a political, you know, it's a political being. It's a political animal, so to speak. That's what it takes. You can't just file it and hope to get it. You've got to have connections typically.
Right. I was going to say, I feel like some people have spoken out because President Trump called Savannah Chrisley, who are Todd and Julie's daughter, yesterday with the news of the pardon. Savannah had kind of heavily campaigned for Trump last year. Is there a conflict of interest here, or does it really not matter? Is it setting a dangerous precedent or no?
there's no conflict there. There's no inherent conflict of interest. With it being a politically motivated type of mechanism, you can't really set a conflict of interest. Does it set a dangerous precedent? You know, people have grappled with that. Lawyers have grappled with it for years because it's not really a judicial question. It's an executive level question in government. And it's up to the president or a governor on a state level case to really measure whether this person is worthy of a pardon. Oh, so you can't really say it does or does not set a dangerous precedent. It's in the eye of the beholder. Everybody has their own feelings on it. There are plenty of people that will say, absolutely, this is insane. There are too many pardons being given out to people that are supportive of the politician in office. And again, that's up to each individual. Yeah. And you kind of weigh and measure that with your own political beliefs and thoughts. It's not really something you can measure from an outside perspective. It's what each person believes in. Yeah.
Well, certainly a case that we'll be kind of following today as we await their release from prison. We do want to say thank you, though, for joining us in studio for the Legal Lowdown, all of that expert insight. And a reminder that you can tune in every Wednesday for the Legal Lowdown with the Varners, covering the latest local and national cases that you just need to know about.